Women and girls are leaders, change makers, caretakers, and peacekeepers. But while they have an empowered role in our societies, to this day, women and girls are still forced to fight for their rights. How much progress have we achieved, and how much work remains? How can you carry on the fight for equal rights? Women's struggle for equal rights is centuries old. But 1848 marked a watershed moment for women's rights with the Seneca Falls Convention, where women activists publicly petitioned for their civil, social, political, and religious rights. In 1893, New Zealand sent a message to other activists across the world that equal voting rights were achievable through advocacy. Entering the 20th century, women around the world are mobilizing in ever greater numbers to campaign for gender equality, just as women's role in the labor force is rapidly evolving by opening up options beyond caretaking roles. In 1945, the United Nations is formed in response to the destructive toll of 2 world wars, and Eleanor Roosevelt oversees the drafting of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. For all the world to hear, she and other advocates underline the place of women's rights within. This sets a foundation for women's rights norms and standards at the international level. In the subsequent decades, just as women are taking historic leadership positions in government, women activists at the grassroots level dovetail with the worldwide momentum by becoming powerful symbols of feminist resistance and social change. This momentum reaches a climax in 1995 when the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action presents a visionary global agenda for women and girls' rights. But in spite of all the progress, as we enter the 21st century, patriarchal stigmas persist and exemplary leaders arise to resist them. With the rise of the digital age, social media emerges as a crucial tool to galvanize populations in the fight against injustice. A single woman's voice is now louder than ever. Grassroots activists trigger social movements online and offline, from cities to villages, inspiring future generations of women and girl leaders. After relentless campaigning, these movements generate changes in policy that signal a true shift in international attitudes and practice towards equal rights. Where are we now? A quarter century after the Beijing Declaration, women and men must mobilize together to overcome the remaining obstacles to gender equality. They must fight for an end to gender-based violence, for access to health care, for equal pay, and for equal participation in political life. The ink isn't dry. Be a part of generation equality, and let us continue to write history together.
There are 7.3 billion people in the world.
Roughly half of these people are women.
It is believed that 59% of these women will have experienced some kind of violence during their life.
Anywhere from 10 to 15% of these women have experienced violence in the past 12 months.
This violence came from spouses, family members, or warring people.
But it was and will not be limited only to physical abuse.
1 in 4 women will be the victim of rape or contemplated rape in their lifetime.
22% of those victims will be under the age of 12.
An estimated 1 million children, most of which are girls, are forced to enter the sex trade.
And as of 2005, 95% of women in less developed countries were subjected to genital mutilation.
Violence against women happens in every country. Many of these women won't or can't come forward. They are not equal simply because they are women.
And being born a woman can be fatal. 60 million girls are missing in the world due to sex-selective abortions, infanticide, and neglect.
But women around the world are neglected every day by being denied education.
There are roughly 774 million illiterate adults in the world, roughly 2/3 of which are women and have been for the past 20 years.
And out of the 72 million children who are not attending elementary school, 54% of them are girls.
In less developed regions, 45% of women will not complete a secondary education.
And only 15% of women with a secondary education will be allowed a tertiary education.
In lesser developed regions, this number will plummet to almost 0.
If women around the world are being denied an education, it is no surprise that they are at a higher risk for employment vulnerability.
80% of the women in Eastern and Western Africa are categorized as high risk for employment vulnerability.
75% of women in Southern Asia suffer the same fate.
35% of women in South America.
15% in Southern Europe and 10% in Northern Europe.
10% is too much. Are their jobs more at risk due to their domestic work?
On average, women spend twice as many hours as men doing domestic work in the home.
From the average extra 4 hours that women in Africa work in the home to the 6 hours that Latin American women work, jobs of women around the world are suffering drastically due to this simple fact.
No woman should have to suffer through these inequalities.
Improving the lives of women improves the quality of life for everyone.
Gender equality raises the cause of child survival, societal development, and alleviate poverty throughout the world.
A stance taken for women's rights
is a stance taken for humans' rights.
The United Nations Millennium Project aims for gender equality and empowered women by 2015.
If these goals are achieved, child mortality,
maternal health,
educational needs,
and poverty can all be improved drastically.
What you've seen are the most recent statistics.
They are numbers representing real women who've suffered through real injustice.
But numbers can change.
In 10 years, will so many women still be suffering?
Or will the global community set their sights on improving women's and therefore humans' rights?
And you can help stop this injustice.
By seeing this,
by sitting where you are,
by feeling what you feel.
You've already taken the first step.